Once there was a girl on Pearl Street, and this girl used to brag she could have any guy that she wanted. She was just that good looking. And she bragged and she bragged and she bragged and she said, once I've decided I want a man, I always get him, no matter what. There's nothing he can do to talk me out of it. So she goes up to a friend of mine and she's macking on him hard. I mean, she's really laying it on thick. He doesn't even look at her. He says, "You don't want me, I have a tiny penis." And she got up and she walked away. And that's not the best part of the story. A lot of y'all, sex is important to you. To a lot of other people, it's just simply not. It's it's not on our agenda. It's not our play mix. We don't make videos. We don't do anything of that nature. We just aren't interested in it. But some people don't get that. So this woman comes back 6 months later and she tries again. And this guy says to her the same thing. He says, "You don't want me, I have a tiny penis." She says, "Dude, I haven't had sex in 6 months. You could please me with a tic tac." I suppose you could take a few morals out of that story. Sometimes there are things that are superficial that you still crave. Sometimes when somebody doesn't want you, you fight that much harder. For me, if somebody doesn't want me, yes, it hurts. But at that point, I'm done. If I'm done with them and their BS or their cruelty or their stupidity, I'm done with it. And I leave, and that should be the end of it. When it's not the end of it, that's when there's problems. When people are assaulting me, that's when there's problems. When people are threatening to kill me and my family, then there's problems. When I can't see my loved ones, then there's problems. And that's not a threat. That's a statement of fact. Those are problems. Those are problems that affect us both physically and mentally. And in cases like this, financially. Now, that story from Pearl Street, a lot of people here in Chapel, Nebraska, when I was growing up, I shouldn't say when I was growing up, I was 15 when I moved here. I'd spent most of my life in the system. I was pretty well as grown up as I was going to be. So, this town, a lot of people said, "Man, you're weird. You ain't never going to make it here. You should go to Boulder. Boulder is full of weirdos." Some of them say weirdo like people who are different, and some of them say weirdo like they're some sort of creeper sex addict. I was a virgin till I was 33. It's not that I didn't have chances before that. I just wasn't interested. It's gross. It's like sharing snot. Ugh. No, thank you. But we also have a lot of other characters down there on Pearl Street. They do some funny things. Not everybody down there is trying to get your daughter hooked on drugs. When it came to Natalie, it was her dad that did that when she was 13. She was 13 years old. He had her out there on the bricks selling drugs for him, along with her twin sister. There's a lot of other stories from Pearl Street that are just as good. I know I pause a lot, and I know it bugs a lot of people, but I have a stuttering problem and I have 0 teeth. I think probably the most important thing for everybody to understand here is that we're all still human beings. You know, this witch hunting, especially witch hunting people through lies and slander. If a woman is allowed to want sex, she's allowed to pursue a sexual relationship. But then if she's angry, she can pretend that the other person was only interested in sex. She can outright lie, and the world is expected to believe her because she's female, especially if she's a pretty white girl. Yes, that is true. And maybe not everywhere in the world. I've only ever been in the United States. I threw rocks at Canada once over the Yukon River. Took an airplane to Alaska and an airplane back. Stayed in a small place called Eagle, Alaska. It's right on the Yukon. And yes, I threw rocks over at Canada. It's just the other side of the Yukon River is Canada. There's a lot of really messed up stuff going right now, and people seem to really want a scapegoat. With the situation with Natalie Bollinger, people were even saying, hey, let's go on a witch hunt. Literally typing it in these groups, people from all over the place. Now, you guys see all of this stuff looking for Mr. Brian Laundrie, whichever it happens to be. Now, you can imagine how scary that is if you're guilty. Imagine how much more scary it is when you're innocent. Now, I didn't have to deal with this stuff, on the news literally everywhere. It was on the news over in Virginia. I believe it was on the news in North Carolina. It was definitely on the news in Colorado. And the news station in Colorado, that's who they pick up in Scottsbluff is the Denver News Channel. That's who they pick up in Cheyenne, Wyoming is the Denver News Channel. Here in Chapel, Nebraska, it's the Denver News Channel. Anything on the Denver News, people see. One guy in town, he was watching the news live. He said, yeah, I saw you. They were filming live and you walked out and gave them the fingers. I said, yep, I certainly did. You guys can see that clip, but they don't start until after my fingers go down, which is kind of sad to me. That was when I was released from jail after being assaulted by Officer Waylon Lolatai, as well as other officers in the jail. There's a lot of people who are different. When you decide that because they're different, it's okay to hurt them, then you're not the good guy anymore. Maybe you never were. Just because someone's different doesn't make them bad. Just because somebody has different motivations than you doesn't make them a horrible person. Just because somebody is not interested in sex does not make it okay to take your frustrations out on them. If you are sexually frustrated and somebody doesn't want you, You've had that equipment your whole life. You know how to work it. You don't need somebody else for that. It's horrible that all these things keep happening over and over and over again. And in most of these cases, it's ineffective law enforcement. Take a look at the situation with Gabby. We got a lot of law enforcement spending a lot of money. And then we got people trying to hire out people to find Mr. Brian Laundrie. Got a lot of people throwing a lot of money at it. Did they throw a lot of money at investigating the crimes against me? No, they didn't. Most of us, they never will. They threw their money at suppressing those crimes, at preventing me from being able to turn in my predators, at preventing me from going to court. If I have to go to a law enforcement agency that I am trying to tell on, which has happened repeatedly, there's a major, major issue. That's not a threat, that is a fact. This is corrupt law enforcement. That is a major issue. I've got a lot of stories from Pearl Street, a lot of them. And I'd like to tell them all. I mean, I got a lot of people I know that did a lot of really good things, a lot of very heroic things, and I'd like to be telling their stories, even the ones I'm pissed off at. Matter of fact, I have told most of their stories because their stories were a part of mine.